Philip was born into royalty, but his life was always in the shadow of his wife's greater fame. He gave up everything for her, including his royal title and his country. Hi, I'm your host. And today we are going to see what really happened to the man who stood behind the crown. Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, husband of Queen Elizabeth II, father of Andrew, Edward, Anne, and the disgraced Prince Charles. Prince Philip died recently at the age of 99. But it's not easy being a prince consort, a title given to the husband of a reigning queen. He was a member of the British royal family, but he wasn't born into the House of Windsor. Philip was born on June 21, 1921, on the Greek island of Rhodes. His parents were Prince Andrew of Greece and Princess Alice of Battenberg. When he was just 18 months old, the family had to flee to Paris after a military coup overthrew the monarchy in Greece. They lived there until 1930, when they finally made their way to London. For years, the family lived in exile in France, moving from hotel to hotel. It was a far cry from the palaces that they once called home. In December 1936, Philip entered Britannia Royal Naval College to become a naval officer. He wanted to follow in his uncle's footsteps, who had been a distinguished admiral in the Greek Navy. World War II was raging and Britain was at war with Germany. Philip excelled in his training and graduated first in his class. He served in several battles, including the Battle of Cape Matapan, where he helped defend Malta against invasion by the Axis powers. By the end of the war, he was first lieutenant on the destroyer HMS Welp. It was during this time that he first met his future wife, Princess Elizabeth. She was only 13 at the time, but she left an impression on him that lasted a lifetime. After the war ended, he returned to Dartmouth to teach cadets. One day, King George VI invited the princesses to come visit the royal family. He hoped that one of his daughters would catch Philip's eye, but it was Elizabeth who caught his eye. Philip and Elizabeth started dating, and within a few months, the king gave his blessing for them to get married. On November 20th, 1947, Elizabeth and Philip were married in Westminster Abbey. Millions of people tuned in on their radios to hear about the wedding of the century. The bride wore a stunning gown designed by Madame Handley Seymour. The bridesmaids were her younger sister, Princess Margaret, and 3 aristocratic cousins. The ceremony was televised for the first time ever. The newlyweds set off on their honeymoon to a royal lodge in the Scottish Highlands. But soon they were back in London and settling into married life. Philip took on the role of Duke of Edinburgh, a title that had been vacant. Since 1910, he became the first person to hold both the title Duke of Edinburgh and Prince Philip. This was because his uncle, King Constantine I of Greece, had abdicated the throne in 1923. During the coronation ceremony, Philip walked behind his wife, holding her 4-year-old son, Prince Charles. As they approached the altar, the crowd began to cheer, and young Charles waved to his subjects. Philip later said that he thought the ceremony itself was very slow, and that his biggest challenge was to keep Charles quiet, but overall it was a great success. In 1953, Elizabeth and Philip set out on a tour of Canada and the United States. They visited Washington, D.C., where they met with President Dwight Eisenhower and his wife. Mamie, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, also toured New York City and saw a performance of the musical My Fair Lady. Back in England, they welcomed their second child, Princess Anne. By the early 1960s, the couple had 2 sons and a daughter. They were regulars at family gatherings, like Christmas at Sandringham. But Philip was always careful not to overshadow his wife. Even though he was a prince, he never forgot that he was a consort and not a king. He once said, "A consort has to be the same as his wife. Share her popularity and take the rough with the smooth." Philip had a long-standing rule that he never refer to himself as Your Highness or Your Majesty. He even asked his own staff not to call him Sir or Lord. Instead, he preferred to be addressed as Mr. Windsor. But he couldn't help occasionally breaking character and would sometimes call himself the boss. He was a patron of over 100 charities and organizations, many of which related to the environment, science, and technology. He was passionate about the natural world and was a strong advocate for environmental protection. He founded the World Wildlife Fund in 1961 and served as its president for over 50 years. But Philip was not without his critics. Some people felt that he was too much of a traditionalist and that he didn't do enough to support his wife, more progressive views. Others thought that he was too outspoken and that he didn't always know when to stay in the background. As Elizabeth aged, she became more reliant on Philip for support. In 1981, the couple celebrated their silver wedding anniversary with a service at St. Paul's Cathedral. But it was during the riots in England that followed the anniversary that people really saw how devoted Philip was to his wife. While rioters shouted obscenities and threw stones at the palace, Philip and Elizabeth stayed inside, relying only on each other for comfort. In 1992, the Queen's 40th anniversary celebrations were overshadowed by a fire at Windsor Castle. The castle was badly damaged, and it seemed as if the Queen might have to move out. But Philip rallied to his wife's side and worked tirelessly to make sure that the castle was restored. He even insisted on sleeping in the castle, so that he could keep an eye on the progress. As the new millennium approached, Philip continued to carry out his duties as Prince Consort. He attended the funeral of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, in 2002, and the Golden Jubilee celebrations in 2003. But it was the death of his mother in 2004 that really affected him deeply. After his mother's death, Philip became increasingly frail and had to pull back on some of his duties. But he still managed to attend major royal events, such as the wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton in 2011. He was very fond of Kate and was said to have been impressed by her down-to-earth nature. He reportedly told a friend, "She's a very nice girl, very sensible, and will be a great support to William." In 2017, at the age of 95, Philip retired from royal duties, but he still made occasional appearances, such as at Trooping the Colour in 2018, to mark the Queen's 92nd birthday on June 9, 2021. Buckingham Palace announced that Prince Philip had passed away at the age of 99. He had died peacefully at Windsor Castle. The news was announced around the world, and people everywhere mourned the loss of a true icon. Philip had a long and distinguished life of service. He was a man who had seen a lot of history and had played a part in shaping it. He was a man who had stood behind the crown and supported his wife, Queen Elizabeth II, for over 70 years. He was a man who had given up everything for love. What did you think of the story? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time.